YouTube, back at it again with the content. Kids out the house, wife's out the house. You already know what it is. I'm blessing you guys with an undefeated first place locals deck profile. I took branded DRACOTAIL, best deck in the format. Yeah, I've always had the branded, what do you call it? The DRACOTAIL cards. And then I picked up like one structure deck and just got a bunch of hand-me-downs of branded support from like friends. Shout out to Neil Penafil, Filipino, my boy. Yeah, so went undefeated. I'm not like the greatest at DRACOTAIL or anything. Like I'm sure there's other folks out there that know how to grind better and know how to like, you know, do crazier things with a deck. But yeah, I mean, I guess the deck carries itself. Let's get right into it. First things first, we got the mommy. I played 3/5 mana. Hand trap. She's, you know, an in-engine archetype hand trap. So yeah, not much to say there. Usually summon Arth, sometimes Gulumel on your opponent's turn, just to balance things or like pop things. I find she's only as good as what you have in the hand, so we're playing a lot of Urgulas because in the mirror you want to pop their back row because there isn't really much, you know, board presence monster-wise, I would say, arguably. 3, Lucaeus. That's your main starter. This is like your shots of the deck to add anything. Then you got your 1 Malulu, of course, because of the ban list, the 1 Fricks, the ban. And then I did play 2 Urgs. I think this is pretty standard. I've even seen like some people bump this up to 3. I think the justification between like Urgs and ban with the 1 to 2 ratio, or like even like the 1 to 3, some people are playing this at 3, is this just is exchanging better into Typhoon and DRACOTAIL because there's a lot more back row presence. And this is actually a form of extension because should you fuse and then your Arthalion gets stopped in terms of recurring back some of the resources from the graveyard back to your hand as you're trying to break into your opponent's board, this can actually add as a form of extension as it resets itself back in the deck, adding you something that you have sent to the graveyard to continue your plays that way. I also find generally your pan is going to be good. The only thing that really came up, I think, at the locals is in the is actually in the mirror. You're going to want to leverage this to pop their Secretarion, and then you're going to, of course, be using the Frixel for Branded Fusion. That's like really your Branded Fusion target. There's also really cool lines with Frixel as well. Like I found, it did come up on me once where I fused it off to make our Secretarian Dragon, and then I was actually able to, and I had like just a lot of names, and I was able to actually revive this, and then this revived something else, and then spun itself back, and then I was able to actually use the Lucius effect because I was reviving a Lucius. So some really cool like multi-step lines that you can do if you should you open a lot of names with Frixel and like 5 mana. So yeah, be aware that like this sack card is actually quite good in grind. It's definitely still a one of, but it's actually quite good in grind if you can combo using it. It can really access you a lot of advantage. And then Malulu, I actually found myself if my Ketu is resolving after I've already set up some board presence with fusing with Rihu, then usually I was trying to end on this in the hand as well, given that your most controllable form of interruption in the mirror primarily is going to be your 5 mana in hand with Malulu, because should they take any kind of action and they're going to be a priority turn player, you can almost pair these two as a form of hand trapping with Arthalion or Gulumel, because this is always going to be secondary to the chain of your opponent because they're going to be turn players. Therefore, you're going to be able to negate potentially like their Arthalion or anything else that they might be able to summon on board. So yeah, just as a quick tip that I found with the deck. Additionally, I've got, of course, the spells, the 1 key 2, 3 Rihu. This is like your main way of fusing, I think, now in Engine. And then I'm maining all 3 traps, the Flame, the Horn, and the Sting. Not much I can say there. One note about Ketu, I guess, is the minute you set up your board presence, you have your traps in the back row. You want to actually reset this very first thing, so that way the ban list actually doesn't actually hurt you. I found like you never really need to set more of this. The ban list bringing this to one absolutely did nothing, I think, to the deck. It doesn't hurt it at all. Cool. Now for the branded support, we got the new Fallen of White. I got OG Albaz. I think you actually should be playing this because it just turns your Sanctifier that we're playing in the extra deck actually live to be able to be used as like a form of interruption as a super polymerization. One Characterizia, one Ecclesia, and then one Alban. I really love this lineup. I think it's just phenomenal. One cool thing that I also sometimes do to play around Pirellia, because everyone's banning 6 Charmings, all 6 of like Pirellia and Fua. This deck doesn't lose Pirellia at all. You should not ever commit your Ash Blossom defensively into a Pirellia, but you could consider it defensively into a Fuvulos. But one thing I actually like to do with this is, give them the 1 draw off the Lucius summon. And if I have this as well, and then I have, after resolving the Lucius, enough material to fuse off using a 5 mana, or even like a Rahu, what I'm then actually doing is I'll go Effective Fallen, dump for cost, because it dumps for cost from the extra deck. I'm usually going to dump for cost actually going blind first, the Dogma. And I'll get into why the Dogma in a second, not the Albion. So I'll dump the Dogma, and then I'll chain to my 5 mana and fuse off the Fallen of White, the Walbaz, before it resolves to avoid giving my opponent additional draws. That's just a nice little tip I find to play even further around Pirelli. Should you want to get the value of the Walbaz end phase, set your Fallen of Virtuous spell. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. And then I do think you absolutely should be playing the 1 copy of the Albion, just because this actually turns your deck into a 39 deck list, because it's a free draw, and I kid you not, like the draws were always so broken. Like one time I actually just drew a Ketu on top of like a really busted engine hand, plus hand traps. And it's a good way to essentially not have to dish out money for 3 Walbazes, arguably, because it just dumps the Walbaz into the graveyard. And then should you fuse into or your Arthalion, you're going to be able to add your Walbaz back to the hand. And then the rest are just going to be engine requirements. Cartesia is really good, I think, to fuse. If you see her, you should use her to fuse, because then all your names are going to be, your DRACOTAIL names are being used to generate value. And yep, not much to say else there. More on the branded package. I've got 2 brand fusion. I'd play 3 if it was at 3, but we just don't have that. Then 2 Fallen of Virtuous. I think this is the right numbers. Nothing really to explain there. And then I also played 6 Charmies. I played 3 Fua, 3 Pirellia, 3 Ash, and then 3 Ghost Bells, just respecting the mirror, and also just respecting Typhoon, because you could potentially hit the Cross Seiya with it. Not much to say there. It doesn't look like it's a lot of non-engine with the hand traps, but I mean, what is that? 12 hand traps plus 14 of these, and then 14 plus 3 is 60. And if you consider, of course, your 5 mana, your mommy as a hand trap. So that's, a lot of non-engine. And this deck is designed to include parts of your engine as a form of interruption, as a turn 0 play as non-engine. So that's why 5 mana is just so good, because it's an interruption, but it's also a form of extension turn 0. Cool. Let's do the side before we do the extra. I've got the 1 Call by the Grave. Good for the mirror, good for just checking a lot of strange hand traps, and unironically, like, it's a good end board piece too. 3 Dragon's Mind, you're always going to land on Arthalion. One pro tip with this, like if you have the life points at the end of your opponent's turn, and especially into the mirror, if your opponent doesn't kill you and they end up with a 5 mana in hand, you should always look to reset this during the end phase to check anything else that they might have been able to hold off on in the mirror. So something like a 5 mana gets checked as a result. 3 Double Cyclone for the mirror as well as Typhoon. 3 Droplet, absolutely busted this format. 3 Retail C for the mirror, and then 2 Drolls to hit any of the Dark Magician, Examine, Magician of Destruction variants. So yeah, that's it for the side. Let's do extra really quick. I played the new card Ecclesia. This was just absolutely phenomenal, part of combo. For links, I played SP. I did play an Exciton, even though I'm not playing 3 Ecclesias. I just felt like, because I'm playing Retaliating Sea, I was going to be able to have more options into this, and I did resolve this actually once. One note on this is I realized you can't actually deal your opponent damage, so yeah, use that accordingly. If you think that your hand is actually strong enough not to go into this and still punch for game, you should do so. But if your opponent has a lot of interruptions and you have a window of opportunity to establish this, then you should also consider it as well. So yeah, that's it for the non-fusions. That was the Synchros, Links, and XCs. I've got... what is that? Kaus. Dogma. I've also got for you guys the Albion. The Sanctifier. The Lubellion. The Mirror Jade. The Albalinatus. As well as... yeah, that's it for the branded stuff. I don't know. Like, I don't have to get too deep into it, but like, this is a good form of interruption. You're gonna make this off of your Sanctifier, essentially summoning back the OG Albaz, and then you can potentially clear like a link of theirs, or even potentially like any kind of extra deck monster. Your Albalinatus is gonna be your branded fusion target going second, as well as your Lubellion. This is a little bit more lean to basically dump Urgula and threaten any back row, but there's also a line if you want to go summon this and then this, discard a card, summon the Kaus to target more back row, and that's also an option as well. But yeah, these three are also great going second. Also, of course, you're going to have to play this just to potentially out a lot of dragons in the mirror, like their Secretarian and whatnot. But yeah, it's just, it eats things up, which is, I think, really important in the mirror. Should they also misplay? Sometimes it does happen where, like, a player on DRACOTAIL could misplay and leave an Albaz on board. Then you can punish them as a result in doing so. But yeah, that's it for these. I want to take a quick moment just to also talk about the Dogma and the Albion. A lot of guys blind, they're just sending the Albion for the Fallen of White Dragon to be able to access their... what's it called? The quick play, the Fallen, the Virtuous, and the End Phase. This is actually incorrect. Because you want to actually be able to play around like Izunas and potential other Fimenas as well if you're going into the mirror, right? So you want to actually go Dogma send off of Walbaz simply because this is going to essentially tell your opponent, I know what I'm doing. I'm threatening to add the Fallen, the Virtuous, and the End Phase, dumping the Albion to be able to potentially facilitate... any kind of board breaking capabilities in main phase 3, which is the end phase. So yeah, always dump this blind game first. If you don't need to, based off of the matchup, then yeah, sure, you could dump this and save this as a potential super poly target off of the original Albaz with Sanctifier. But again, as a best practice going blind, you should absolutely be resolving this first. Then your Fallen of White, your Fallen and the Virtuous quick play will pop something on the field. You can potentially also out your own Albaz if you somehow manage to leave it on board. Send this, then this sets the other quick play. What this also in turn does is it synergizes really well, and it may not seem like much because you're only committing one additional card from your main deck into this theory, but the reality is, since you're exhausting both quick plays turn one, you're less likely to draw into them, even though, again, it's just one card, but the details matter here. You're going to be less likely to draw into the other quick play spell using your traps, because all your traps are essentially going to give you the necessary draw power into potential more hand traps to increase your ceiling even further. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents there on those guys' interaction with the Fallen of the White and setting that as an end board piece. I then played 2 Arth, the one Gulumel, the one Secretarian, and then the one Shalas. I found, like, going second, if you make the Shalos first, it's actually creating a lot more pressure against your opponent before you commit your Gulamel or your Arthalion. Just because when this sticks on the board immediately, right, this says ignition, right? It's an ignition effect, which means it's not quick play, it's not on summon. It's ignition. You have to call resolution. Your opponent has an opportunity to respond to the summon. Then you can potentially do its effect, which is it's targeting cards in the graveyard. In this case, I believe it's 2. Is it 2? Yeah, so you target 2 DRACOTAIL cards in your graveyard, or then any card anywhere on the field or the graveyard. It has to be of the same type. So if it's a monster or a spell or trap, you're able to do so. And then you're targeting it and you're trying to spin them back into the deck. So this is really actually broken, because what this means is it's the only card in your extract that if it establishes its presence on the board, it threatens anything. It threatens anything that the player may be inclined to play around or try to out initially, should they not be able to play around certain end board pieces in the mirror, for example. Right? Like, let's say I'm looking at my hand, I can't play around a horn. Then maybe I like special summon this in defense, signaling to my opponent or bluffing to my opponent. I can't play around a horn. Here's a Shaolas. I need you to figure out a way to out this. So there's almost like a little bit of a mind game with this card, just based off of the amount of pressure that it applies. And on top of that, it's actually, I think, mandatory to be able to reset some of your spells, your power spells back, because we lost 2 Ketus, right? And it actually does matter in this case. In a grind game, your traps then have to start almost leaking into your graveyard presence with your monsters. Because you want to actually leave your monsters, hand traps and engine, in the graveyard to be able to continuously recycle that resource back from the graveyard to the hand using Arthalion. So being able to potentially use this as pressure going second and an element to your board breaking capability to reset some of your spells preemptively means that when you continue to fuse during a grind game in the mirror, you're then actually able to set off your Ketu and your Rahu as a result, and not having to potentially just be dumping materials from your hand that are DRACOTAIL names and not being able to resolve them, because you want to be able to continue to resolve those cards because they're broken, right? They have to set, but when they do set, they're popping or negating something onto the field. Monster or back row, right? We're talking about Pan and Urgula here. So yeah, that's just like a tip that I found comes up a lot, is you pressure this immediately as a first summon, and in turn, what the value that it gets you is it's able to reset some of your spells early, sooner rather than later, thereby allowing your Pan, Urgula, and Malulu to resolve fully, so that way you're not only able to set something for extension, but you're also able to pop and destroy your opponent's board. Yeah, that's it for me. Talk to you next time.